Football season, people. Finally, after 17 months without football, we are now at the start of college and the NFL season. Welcome to Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist Mac Engel. He's Clarence E. Hill Jr., all things University of Texas apologist, who is in quite a conundrum this weekend. Clarence, your beautiful daughter will be cheerleading for the hated Rice Owls on Saturday in Austin. Who will you be cheering for?
Well, first of all, I did have a conundrum, but really the conundrum was more about whether I should stay in Dallas or stay in Fort Worth for the TCU game or go to Austin for the Texas Rice game. And somehow I've gotten a reprieve that my daughter is not going to Austin. The cheerleaders are not going to be traveling this weekend.
Why? It's 20 minutes up the road. What, Rice doesn't have the money?
Listen, Linda. Listen, I don't know.
Karen. It's Karen.
Listen, Karen. The bottom line is, so I don't have that conundrum anymore.
All right.
Of having to choose between staying here and for the biggest game in the history of TCU football and going to Austin. But as far as the Austin game, I'm cheering for my daughter, okay? I'm rooting for my daughter, my family over everything, okay? I'm rooting for my daughter, but I'm cheering for the Longhorns, of course. Come on, this is national championship season. It's no question.
It's a national championship season. We're the Longhorns.
No,
you know what I'm talking about?
No question.
Give me a Longhorns
season prediction. Huh?
Texas is going to win the Big 12. It's not even close. I always pick Texas to win the Big 12 because when they don't, they always disappoint me. And there's nothing more exciting in Big 12 football than watching Texas underachieve again. So back me up. Will Texas win the Big 12?
They will win Big 12 in a runaway. They will play OU. The two hated SEC schools will play in the Big 12 championship game at AT&T Stadium.
All right. I like it. Got you down on the record. I've got Texas Tech winning the Big 12 this year because they've got a bunch of seniors.
Done?
Nothing, but they've got seniors coming back. They had a good season last season. They had a good year last year, the first year under Johnny McGuire. They beat your beloved Longhorns in Lubbock. They go to Austin this year. It's going to be a little bit tricky.
Well, they got the commissioner on their side. So
they got the commissioner
and the officials will be on their side.
And the officials, there's no doubt. And I like Joey McGuire. I think he's done a good job. And I like seniors. I like upperclassmen. It's one of the reasons TCU did so well last season. They had all these upperclassmen, and Tech's got a lot of upperclassmen. Not that Texas isn't just absolutely stacked and loaded and shouldn't do what it's doing, but I like upperclassmen. And every time we've picked the Big 12 the last 3 or 4 years, we've always been wrong. So I know Texas was the sexy preseason pick, justifiably, because it's just talent just coming out everywhere. But I like upperclassmen. I like older guys, and that's why I'm going with Tech. However, we got a bigger story, Clarence. I don't know if you knew this or not. Cowboys made a trade for a quarterback, a first-round draft pick quarterback, number 3 overall pick in the draft. Did you see that?
I did. I did.
Okay. Trey Lance, the former number 3 overall pick in the 2020 draft, whom the San Francisco 49ers gave up 17 first-round draft picks, figures approximate, to acquire on draft day 3 years ago, barely played in San Francisco, got beat out by Brock Purdy, got beat out by Sam Darnold. 49ers gave up on him, traded him to the Cowboys for a 4th-round pick. This trade happened last week, the day before the Cowboys finished out their fake season on Saturday night against the Las Vegas Raiders. I think they beat the Raiders. Lance has not played with the Cowboys. Clarence, I know what you're going to say because you're a Cowboys homer. Do you like the trade?
I mean, stop it. Just stop the drama and the foolishness. Like the trade, it's a 4th-round pick. I mean, what's not to like? You're getting a first-round talent for a 4th-round minimal investment. It's the 3rd quarterback. It's a developmental quarterback. It's a shot in the dark. It's throwing something up against the wall to see if it sticks. You gave up Will freaking Greer, okay, for him. I mean, we traded out Will Greer for Trey Lance. What is the big deal? Other than he was a former first-round pick and was a bust in San Francisco. But he's just 23 years old.
It's win-win-win. Okay, there was a first-round talent. Dak Prescott said it himself after the game against Vegas. This is a first-round talent. This is somebody that some smart people in the NFL thought this guy can play. He had some unfortunate injuries with the 49ers. Things happen. He's not playing. Brock Purdy comes in. He looks really, really good. Beats the Cowboys in the NFC divisional round. And then he tears his elbow. Yeah, tears his UCL. I think that's what it was in the NFC Championship game. Comes back healthy. He wins the job. The shocking thing to me, Clarence, and the thing that was so telling is that the 49ers named Sam Darnold, former first-round pick himself, the number 2 quarterback ahead of Trey Lance, which tells me that John Lynch, the GM of the 49ers, decided, you know what, we don't think this guy can play. I agree. You have to like what the Cowboys did in terms of getting him. They've been wanting to develop a guy for a while. It's an expensive contract. It's a first-round contract that they're going to have to sit on for 3 years. Oh, don't give me that look.
He's making $940,000 this year.
Okay.
The 49ers have paid the bulk of that deal. They paid the signing bonus. He's making $900,000. It's not an expensive contract.
Okay. Clarence Hill is now lobbying to be renamed Clarence Jones, family member. Fully support that move, by the way.
I just like to be factual.
Okay. So what we are saying here is that the Cowboys just took on a former first-round pick who's really young, while their starter, whom they love Dak. Yeah, this looks a little weird if I'm the starting quarterback. Dak said all the right things. Clarence, how does Trey Lance affect Dak Prescott? And if you say he doesn't, I'm going to reach through this screen and smack your face.
Reach through the screen. Let's go. Let's get it on right now. I got
Tell me that.
It doesn't. Okay.
Oh, my God.
Let me talk. Can I talk?
Fine.
Trey Lance has 4 NFL starts, okay? He has 17 college starts. He's thrown 400 passes in the pros and college combined in his life.
We can go back to high school, too? Going back to high school? Maybe what he did.
I'm just saying. We're talking about a neophyte guy who's never done anything on any level.
Neophyte guy.
He's a neophyte. And this is a project. It is a project written all over it. The Cowboys took a chance on a project. Why would that impact your 7-year, 8-year veteran who's making $40 million a year? That does not impact him. It only impacts him with you media people, you guys with this narrative, this national narrative. Well, they didn't tell Dak they were signing a 3rd quarterback. They gave him a 4th-round pick. This is going to put more pressure on Dak. Dak has had pressure on him from the beginning. This is not putting more pressure on Dak.
I've been disappointed in a lot of people in my life.
I mean, it's just crazy. This is crazy talk.
Yeah, it is.
Crazy talk.
I've been disappointed with a lot of people in my life, usually the mirror. This argument from you, climbing the ladder. Can't believe it. Disappointed. You got children. What would they say to this ridiculous, inane argument? It doesn't impact. The guy's 30 years old. He's not 35. He's not 38. He's not at the end. He's right in the middle of his career. 30.
Right. He needs a backup. He needs a long-term backup. He needs a backup. No. So I'm asking you something.
He needs a backup.
Before you move on, I'm asking you, name me a quarterback that was a bust at 1st-round pick who went to another place and became a starter.
You didn't even read what I wrote. You didn't even read me.
Name me one.
Brett Favre.
1st-round pick. Name me a quarterback.
And the Packers gave up a 1st-round pick to get him. I win. Thank you. Thank you.
So hold
the applause. We'll do autographs later.
Name me a 1st-round pick. A 1st round.
Drew Brees?
No, he was not a 1st round. And he was not a bust. And he was not a disappointment.
He had a torn shoulder.
Another guy. No, he was not a bust. He was not a disappointment. He won next season with the Chargers.
Clarence,
there's no history of this happening.
The closest would be the Falcons giving up on Favre, who was a 2nd-round pick to the Packers in 91 or 92, because Green Bay sent them a 1st-round pick for a guy out of Southern Miss that no one really knew anything about. Now, the difference was he came into a bad team and he fell into the starter's role when I think it was Don Mikowski got hurt. I mean, that's for some football facts. Trey Lance, you're right. All these things, this is a project, this is a project. Here's why this is different. This is a first-round guy. Dak's only 30 years old. And I do believe now, this trade, the timeline, the playoff history, I do believe now there is some feeling, some pressure, like, we love this guy, number 4. That's Dak Prescott, by the way, not Brett Favre. We love this guy, and we've got to see some more. And he's going to get that time. They're going to give him an extension, but I do think they are at a point where in his career, we're like, it's getting to be time. We got to see some more.
So
because
if they're going to give him extension, then what are we talking about? Why is this?
They have to. They have to for salary cap relief. Trey Lance isn't even going to practice this year, Clarence.
Exactly. So why are we talking
and
about
you were like, this guy's not the backup. And here's the other problem I have with it. The backup on this team is Cooper Rush. And Cooper Rush is a better backup than Trey Lance. Right?
Exactly.
So they did this because they're developing a guy they think who could be a starter.
Could be the
and
backup.
He's a starter at 23. He's a starter. If this guy's 23 years old, then that means, and Dak Prescott sees this. Dak Prescott is not a dumb guy. He sees what this is. He is not a threat to his status as a starter this year or next year. But how did Dak Prescott become an NFL starting quarterback? What happened that opened the door for him to become a starting quarterback? Right. And what has happened to Dak Prescott the past few years?
Oh, stop it. This is not even a comparison. Those were not career-ending injuries that would happen to Tony Romo. It's not even in the same stratosphere. But the bottom line is, you talk out of both sides of your mouth, and that's the problem with you pundits who are not involved on a day-to-day basis. You said this is a threat to Dak, but they're going to give him an extension. If they're going to give him an extension, it's not a threat to Dak. Inherently, it's not a threat to Dak if they're going to give him an extension. If they're going to give him an extension, it's not a threat to Dak. Clarence, what are we talking about?
Clarence, you're a basketball fan, right? You like basketball. Yes?
I love basketball.
You're right.
Hoops.
Remember,
hoop dream.
So we're both old enough to remember Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Maybe amazing. Maybe the best play, maybe the most underappreciated great player. Like we talk about great players, Kareem should be on the list.
He's in the GOAT conversation. He should be in the GOAT conversation.
No doubt about it. Man, at the very end, yeah, but you remember watching him at the end? Played till he was like 58 years old. Remember at the very end? Skyhook was short, couldn't run, couldn't rebound. Sad. Watching Kareem, it was. And listening to you argue about this kind of reminds me about Kareem at the end. It's kind of just sad. One of the great ones used to have it. Skyhook.
Both sides of your mouth.
Right?
One thing
everywhere.
One thing we haven't talked about is the Jerry Jones factor, and we can move on. And Jerry loves the engagement. And whether it messes up the team, whether it messes up Dak's psyche, whether we think it bothers Dak or not, the fact that we're talking about it and Take is talking about it, and Jerry, it's just like last week with the Jimmy Johnson not going in the Ring of Honor. Jerry said, "Y'all gave y'all something to talk about, didn't it?" Yes, it did. Just like the Odell Beckham stuff, gave y'all something to talk about, didn't it? And it gives you something to talk about. This is a third-string quarterback that we're out there in practice today taking photos of. He had an interview at the podium for a third-string quarterback.
Clarence, this guy was the third overall pick with 3 years left on his contract.
And he just got beat out by Sam Darnold. You said it. And I was talking to somebody on the radio the other day, and they said, why would the 49ers trade a guy to the Cowboys, one of their biggest rivals who could come back and haunt them? Because they don't think he's very good, and they don't think it's going to come back and haunt them. And if they feel that way, why are we worried about it? Jerry did this because, yes, it's a chance to develop somebody. It's a project. It's throwing something against the wall. But at the end of the day, you're talking about the Cowboys.
Well, you know who doesn't want us to talk about the Cowboys? Our fearless producer, Candy Bolden. She sends a message. I got to call it. Candy's like, might be time to move on. We spent 15 minutes on this. We could spend another 115 minutes on this. But we won't because Candy's in charge. All right, we're going to take a break. We got more to talk about here on Cowboys Overtime. But first, Window Nation, save us all.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no payments and pay no interest until 2025. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Back here on Cowboys Overtime. Clarence, I'm in line to get me a Dallas Cowboys Trey Lance jersey because you and I both know he's going to be the starter here in about a season or two. Okay, other roster moves, other trades have been made. The Dallas Cowboys have officially given up on boss man Fat, former second-round draft pick from LSU and Kentucky. A little bit of the off-field stuff kind of got in the way. Really wasn't much of a player. They traded him to the Miami Dolphins for a former first-round pick, a defensive back with a name I cannot pronounce. Clarence, bail me out. Who's the name of this defensive back from the Dolphins? I couldn't say his name.
His name is Noah, and we're gonna call him Noah.
Noah Bust.
Noah
Bust.
So it was basically one bust traded for another bust. One disappointment traded for another disappointment, and we will see. Again,
we will see translates to he can't play.
Well, no, he can't play, and he hasn't been able to play. He hasn't, I got a message from one of the Dolphins beat writers said the guy makes no plays on the ball, but he's big and fast.
All right.
He's big and fast. He makes no plays on the ball.
So did they just trade Kelvin Joseph for Kelvin Joseph?
They did, but, it was time to move on from Kelvin Joseph. They should have moved on from him last year after he was involved in the drive-by shooting and, of course, got cleared by Dallas police after he fingered his friends for doing the shooting.
It's this guy's fault.
After he sat on it for a month and didn't tell anybody, and the family was trying to find the killer of their child.
It's not funny.
No, it's not funny.
It's not
sad.
funny, but it is sad. You're right.
It is sad, and so he's had character issue going back to college, and so the fact that
he got kicked out of LSU. Do you know how hard that is?
Yes, it's like being kicked out of OU. That's really hard. Or A&M is really hard. I mean, they don't care about character. These are those schools.
Speaking of character, the Cowboys made other significant moves because, unfortunately, the hardest day in the NFL is the day right after the end of the preseason, which is cut down day to get down to the 53-man roster. Clarence, was there any other move? Obviously, the Kelvin Joseph move was a big one because that was the former second-round pick. Any other cut that really caught your eye that you didn't? There's always one of these or two of these guys like, ooh, wow. Any of them that really surprised you?
No, nothing really surprised me. Certainly there was some good news. You got 3 undrafted free agents who made the roster, and running back Hunter Lipke. You had the kicker Brandon Aubrey, and guard TJ Bass. All the draft picks have certainly made the roster, which is good, led by the fan favorite Deuce Vaughn, the 6th round pick, the 5'5" dynamo that's gonna, break the Eagles' hearts this year. The interesting thing is the Cowboys did go light at linebacker. Only, basically kept 3 linebackers on the roster because I consider Micah Parsons a edge rusher, and they cut Jabril Cox, who was actually picked up today, or chose to go to the practice squad of the Washington football team rather than come back to the Cowboys practice squad. And he was a 4th round pick in 2021 out of LSU, and there were a lot of high hopes for him, his athleticism, and the light just never really came on with him. And several members of that draft class from 2021, they said goodbye to, but including Boss Man Fat, Quentin Bohanna, Simi Fehoko, Cox, Matt Farniak, all of those guys from that 2021 class they said goodbye to.
That 2021 class, if they didn't have Micah Parsons, that class would look exactly like the class of 2008 or 9 when they had like 12 picks and none of them made it. It really is a testament how well this team has done draft-wise in other areas, because when you have a draft class that bad, I mean, you normally need roster guys, right? You need rotational players, somebody who can contribute, like at least 3 or 4 guys. They got now the guy that they hit on looks like a Hall of Fame player, and Micah Parsons, but the rest of those guys, the fact
they're just guys.
They're
just guys, and
they weren't Clarence. They weren't even just guys. They didn't make the team.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying most of they're just guys. You got Micah Parsons, and then they got another starter, Oso Digizua, who's a defensive tackle,
Decent player,
and Chauncey goes to who's the squadman, and Nation Wright's still on the team, but he has not really panned out. But yeah, it's been a disappointing class. It was a disappointing class, and so it is what it is. But that's what you do, and they played a lot of games, with the roster. They cut some guys they're going to bring back. They cut the long snapper, and they cut C.J. Goodwin, so to keep some guys, and they're moving a couple of guys to the injury reserve so they can bring those guys back. One thing is they don't have a backup center, which means that they're scouring the waiver wire for a backup center, and they haven't yet to sign one. They didn't pick up anybody off waivers today, so there's no backup center on this roster at this point.
Clarence, when you look at the 53. And you and I have talked about linebacker being thin. Obviously, it's thinner now because Jabril Cox, like you said, the light just didn't come on. Obviously, offensive line, you just mentioned backup center. There's some other spots in that line in terms of depth that's a concern. What's the one that you look at, you're like, oh, God, I hope that works out because this could be bad?
Well, I mean, I just think it's the offensive line, and I think that, you worry about if Tyron Smith gets hurt. And
it's not if, it's when.
Right. And then and how do you adjust? And there are the questions at backup guard. Certainly you're gonna move Tyler Smith probably back out to tackle, and then you got to move one of the guys in at guard who you don't trust to be a decent backup guard. So, the offensive line depth is an issue, whether it's backup tackle, backup guard. That's a huge problem because you can't trust the health of Tyron Smith. No,
you can't trust that, but the one that screams, and you and I were laughing about it against in the Raiders game, kicker. I know kicker's boring, but it's a 3-point league, and it blows me. And Brandon Aubrey's a great story. Whatever, local kid, went to Notre Dame, soccer player. He looks like he's got the leg, like he can hit it from 62, 63. But who knows if he's going to have the accuracy? But if this burns them.
Oh yeah, that's the thing about it is I keep telling people, I don't care. But of course, it's always going to be Dak's fault. It doesn't matter. It's going to be Dak's fault. But
if he goes that, well, hang on. If they go out and they score 28, 30 points against the Giants or Eagles or whatever else, and it's 31-30, and they're down by a point,
and they missed the field goal,
and they line up a 40-yard field goal with Brandon Aubrey in decent conditions, and he whiffs it, that ain't Dak's fault.
I know that, and you know that, but it'll be Dak lost the game.
Yeah, and then Clarence is going to put in Trey Lance.
There you go. Okay. Exactly. Exactly.
All right, Candy, what's our next image? Are we going to go to the big game in Fort Worth on
That's
Saturday?
what we are. We're going to Fort Worth.
All right. Oh, my God. There he is. The pride of Jackson State, former Jackson State, former Dallas Cowboy, former Baltimore Raven, Atlanta Falcon, Atlanta Braves, Cincinnati Red, New York Yankee, San Francisco 49er, Florida State Seminole, Talladega College.
He's not a Seminole anymore.
Yeah, I love that. He just owns Florida State. Deion Sanders is the head coach at Colorado, which will play TCU, the defending national runner-up champions. I don't think that's a thing.
Is a runner-up or champion? I mean,
I don't know. I'm sure there's a trophy.
The crazy thing about TCU's year, and we'll talk to Deion. Were they champions of anything?
No,
they were not the Big 12 champion.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up because I messed something up, and some fan was making fun of me about it last year. I confused the fact that there was a window of time there when, if you won the regular season in the Big 12,
you were champion.
Then Big 12 champions, right? Yeah. Well, then they added the extra game, and then I forgot. Well, you have to win that game to be Big 12 champions. Well, TCU won the Big 12 regular season. But that didn't mean anything. But they lost. Go ahead.
I didn't take a call.
What?
Can I call you right back?
Oh, my God. I'm talking to Adam Schefter. He's taking phone calls on
live. It's my doctor, and I don't want to. It's my doctor's office. I went and got a health checkup, and I give him my health status. Ooh. And I wanted to tell him I want to call him right back because I didn't want to miss.
I got to do that Friday. I'm scared to death.
Yeah, I always get my preseason checkup, and
really,
I got to get my preseason. Get out.
What do they normally tell you? Stay off the fried foods. What else?
Yes, stay up.
Sleep.
Exercise. How about exercise? Get off.
You exercise with me. Tell you what. You work out with me.
Butt.
You work out with me. I'll get your I didn't say it, butt into shape. I didn't say it. I was close.
Anyway, let's get back to TCU.
Okay, TCU. Okay, so no, technically TCU last year, what they did, that was a pretty big achievement. They are the first team from the Big 12, first team from the state of Texas to win a playoff game. It's amazing that I said that. They beat Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl in a crazy game. A lot of that team is gone. 8 players to the NFL, including your quarterback. Now they're going to play by far and away the most interesting story of the 2023 college football season, Deion Sanders in his first year at Colorado. Clarence, you and I have talked about this a couple times over text. I know you and Deion are buddies. You've known him for a long, long time. Tell me why you think Deion Sanders, as the head coach at the University of Colorado, will ultimately work.
He's never failed at anything.
Ooh, I'd be careful about that one.
You're going to go with that little school thing. I'm talking athletically. Athletically, he's never failed at anything.
It's kind of a big thing.
Yes. We moved past it. And he's never failed at anything athletically. Never. Nothing. Everything athletically, he's not a school administrator. And we can argue all day about that. But he's never failed at anything athletically. And I don't know why this would be different. He's not going to win this year. He's not going to win this game. But, Deion. He
might. Clarence, they got 70 new guys. Nobody has any idea what that team's going to do.
Right, and that's my issue. And that's my issue when I'm breaking down the game is that they do have 7 new guys. Most of them worked there in the spring. So they've basically been putting everything in the fall. So you're talking about, I think he'll be much better next year than they are this year once they get their systems in place, guys get comfortable. Secondly, the heat, the depth, all of that stuff is going to take a toll on Saturday. They're not practicing this kind of weather in Colorado, But I think Deion will be a success. I think the one thing that people should keep their eyes on, his son is pretty good. The quarterback is pretty good. His son is really good. Okay,
yep. He's really good.
He is really good. He's accurate. He doesn't get flustered. He's a really good quarterback. And so he will be an NFL quarterback, and he's been tutored by Tom Brady and Troy Aikman and different guys like that. His son is really good, and Deion will ultimately win. I think, the thing about Deion's story is that, it's funny because, and Randy Galloway, our former colleague, everybody should make fun of Deion because of 9 toes. He didn't tackle, he was soft. But what he's gone through, and it's funny, and it's not funny, it's just interesting, it's ironic that we didn't appreciate the toe injury because the toe injury is what is debilitated him right now. The guy that was fastest ever, he can't run anymore because they had, several toes amputated. Yeah. Because of that toe injury from college, Randy Galloway with the Cowboys, Randy Galloway used to make fun of and call him 9-toe because they had a turf toe. We would act like, it's just a toe, you're being soft, you can't play because of a toe. That's serious. There was serious stuff, and people didn't appreciate how serious it was. And for him to get that foot amputated, those toes amputated off that foot.
Oh, I thought he had his foot amputated. I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't think toes, right?
Yeah, toes. Several toes amputated off there. Several toes.
It's still terrible, but
it's awful. I don't know if you saw some of the photos, but for him to do that and the pain he had to go through, he's endured a lot of pain. Actually, he interviewed with TCU.
I know.
Who was at Jackson State, who was in the hospital room, with that toe surgery. With doing that amputation interview. So I just think that what he's gone through is showing his own toughness, inner toughness to be out there and coach and work with these kids. And people really don't appreciate what he's had to endure with that foot over the last couple of years. And certainly he had another surgery just weeks ago, leading up to the opener to get ready for this. But yeah, it's the biggest game in TCU, the most media credentials ever, the most talked about game, most talked about season opener in TCU history. I kind of got in trouble because I tried to get a press pass, at the last minute. But all of that stuff. But it's going to be fun to watch. It's must-see TV in Fort Worth on Saturday afternoon.
I have no idea how this is going to play out, and I think when you look at Deion Sanders, because he's a lightning rod, and I mean, to me, he is as gifted of a speaker, athletic from an athlete standpoint, that we've seen since maybe Muhammad Ali. I mean, he's just a phenomenal speaker. As a coach, I don't know. Clarence, if you look at the University of Colorado in its history, it really only had one guy that worked out, and that was Bill McCartney. And Bill left in 1994. Since then, they've had 7 other full-time head coaches. Now, Mel Tucker probably was going to work out, but Mel left for more money to Michigan State. But it doesn't change the fact that this has been a very, very challenging job. I don't know if it's going to work or not. And, his resume as a college head coach is really, really short. I thought what he was doing at Jackson State was so noble and so great. But the bottom line is he didn't want to stay. And I was sad for that, sad for the people at Jackson State, and quite frankly, sad for the people at HBCUs who are trying to do something in the face of very stark odds, who are working under really, really challenging conditions. And I thought he could have made a bigger effect there than he would be at a Power 5 school. But he wanted to go. He wanted to make more money, and that's his right. I thought the sales pitch that he used to do it at Jackson State was noble, but I think ultimately, because he left after 2 years, it looks a little disingenuous. But those are my own feelings about it. And I think whether or not, and I'm not alone in that. I think a lot of people feel the same way I do. But you know what? He's going to be fascinating to watch. I don't know if it's going to work. The idea that, just because he worked out at Jackson State, a lot of coaches have left other places and gone to Colorado and gone to P5 jobs, and it doesn't work out because it's really, really, really hard. But Colorado's spending a lot of money. They're going to the Big 12.
Should have never left the Big 12.
No, they shouldn't have, but they did, and now they're back, and the league looks like it's on solid footing for now, however long that lasts. So at a minimum, it'll be interesting to watch. But he's a fascinating character, because in one breath he can drive you crazy, and the next breath you're like, wow, that's great, you did some good stuff. So you have to kind of take the whole package, and that's a lot. It's not for everybody. TCU interviewed him; they were really impressed by it, but the timing didn't work out because the candidate they really wanted was the guy they got in Sonny Dykes. That's Saturday at 11 a.m. We've talked way too long, or at least Clarence did. It's a good one. All right, for all of your Cowboys coverage, TCU, everything else coverage needs, be sure to check us out on StarTelegram.com. Clarence's Rice Owls play Texas on Saturday in Austin, where it's going to be 158 degrees.
2 o'clock.
Beautiful on 2 o'clock. That's awful. Well, then good. I'm glad your daughter doesn't have to sit in that heat cheering. For all of your stuff, please check us out on StarTelegram.com. Clarence, call your doctor. We'll see you next week on Cowboys Overtime.